The fight over a key eastern city in Ukraine is entering a crucial stage. The city of Severodonetsk has become the focal point of Russia's war in recent weeks. There are reports that the battle is being fought house to house and that Russian forces have overrun much of the city. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says this battle may decide the fate of the Donbas. Witold Dzielski is Poland's new ambassador to Canada. Hi, Ambassador. Nice to meet you, and congratulations on receiving your credentials.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me here.
I appreciate you coming in. Poland has been kind of at the forefront of discussions and actions taken in the war against Ukraine. And I wanted to ask, from your vantage point, it feels as though there is a bit of war fatigue, I guess you could call it. We're more than 100 days into this. It's difficult for, I think, a lot of people to, it can be hard to watch the atrocities keep happening, but they are still happening. How do you, from your vantage point, counteract that fatigue that might be in play?
This is a phenomenon that all the democratic countries have to face. In democratic countries, our societies tend to get tired of watching horrid pictures, as it is the case with Ukraine, and our politicians tend to do less and put a little bit less efforts in providing support in the areas where it's necessary. This is something that we have to keep in mind, because for Mr. Putin there is the war fatigue does not exist. I mean, he does not need to face that problem. We do, and this is the job for you, for the media, and obviously this is the job for the governments involved, and for politicians, diplomatic communities. It's of crucial importance at this point. Do
you sense in your conversations with your counterparts from other countries, for example, or in the conversations you have with the government in Poland, that there is a challenge with countries and governments being fatigued of this? Do you think that challenge exists as you see it?
Very much so. It slowly appears in the conversations with my colleagues, but it's vivid in the media. As the war began, for the first couple of weeks, nearly every news was somehow related all over, whether it was Poland, Canada, or any of the allies. Much of the news was related to the situation in Ukraine and the eastern border of eastern flank of NATO. And today, people are obviously interested in all other topics as well, and this context is still there. It's very good that it is kept there, but there is a little bit less of that. And again, it's worth making sure that we remember about the fact that people, for no reason, are being killed in Ukraine. Cities are being destroyed, women are being raped, and all the horrid things, all the atrocities are still taking place.
Have you seen it manifest in any kind of waning of commitment towards aid, be it humanitarian or lethal, from other countries? Or are you hopeful that commitment still exists?
The commitment is strong, I would say, among the allies, and it has developed through the months of war. But we need to do more. At this point, we could say that in a number of ways Russia has lost. It doesn't mean that they will not be able to achieve certain elements of their strategy, but we want to make sure that also Ukraine is not on the losing side. We need to do as much as we can in terms of providing support, military support most of all, but humanitarian as well, and then development, in order to make sure that Ukraine is able to have a sense of victory.
The president of Ukraine has really in recent days highlighted the significance of what's taking place in Severodonetsk and said that it could, if Ukraine falls there, lead to larger territory gains in the east by Russia. Are you fearful of that?
Absolutely. This is yet another place which has strategic significance. So the fight for the city is absolutely crucial, and the Ukrainians need, at this point, they need more support in terms, especially in the military context. And again, this is being provided. by a number of countries, including Poland, which is heavily engaged, but also countries like Canada, which support is very, very much appreciated.
You are a diplomat, and I'm sure you're aware that the idea of diplomacy, and if it can play a role in the conclusion of this war, is certainly a topic of discussion and often debate among various leaders in Europe. The president of your country criticized the leaders of France and Germany over their phone calls with Russian President Vladimir Putin, saying it was like having talks with Adolf Hitler during World War II. I believe that's according to a German paper, the Bild. The comments that I believe President Duda is referring to come from President Macron, who said on June 4th, "We must not humiliate Russia so that the day when the fighting stops, we can build an exit ramp through diplomatic means." What do you make of that term, "we must not humiliate Russia"? Do you think it was a mistake to say something like that?
You know, in Poland and in the region, we know Russia very well. We had a horrid history in terms of our relations with Russia. We know that diplomacy is very important, and this is a necessary element, and the negotiations will be a necessary element at some point. But at the same time, we know that for Mr. Putin, it's he can play all of us in a very easy manner. His approach basically looks like this: he takes 10 steps forward, then moves 2 steps back and says, "Okay, this is what we could have negotiated." So getting into diplomacy with and especially legitimizing Putin is very risky, because if we start legitimizing Putin and having talking to him, having negotiations, we will start legitimizing what has happened, and this is something the international community should not agree to.
Let me ask the kind of counter question. I understand the point about not legitimizing him, but if there is no communication with him, not to excuse Macron's comment, especially about humiliation, but if the lines of communication aren't open with 1 or 2 leaders, doesn't it diminish the prospect of the possibility of an exit ramp? Like, isn't it worth giving it a little bit of a try?
Always, but let's remember, if you were able to give me an example in last 3 months of keeping the channels of communication open with Kremlin and related successes, then this conversation could, sort of move forward otherwise. But Mr. Putin was promising to NATO allies that there will be no war before February 24. It seems that was not the case, and there were different promises based on negotiations and diplomacy, including protecting the people from different cities so that they could safely leave the place, and then those motorcades were bombed by Russian military. So I think diplomacy is important, but we need to conduct diplomacy in such an atmosphere that we can trust each other.
Okay, Ambassador, I'll leave it there. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.